Tom forced his eyes to stay ahead, to scan the ground floor opening before him. He looked left and right. There were no zombies there, just rows of closed, bloody doors. No, not all were closed. 2 stood ajar, bloody hand and face prints all around them. Under them, too. These were 2 apartments that had been broken into by zombies. He froze, listening. Were they empty? What if there were zombies inside? Freshly turned, and only now drawn by the noise. Breathe. Tom clenched his teeth, the grip on the hatchet tightening. Breathe. He took a shaky breath. The metallic scent of blood mingled with the sweet stench of rotting flesh. It made him sick. A growl tore through the silent building, followed by another, both coming from above. His head snapped up, eyes meeting a bloodshot pair. Long brunette hair framing a bloody, snarling face, half her cheek missing. His eyes went wide as the thing hurtled itself down over the railing. Head first, blood dripping from the open jaws, hands reaching for him. 6 seconds in the open. Tom watched the rising sun reflect on the faraway skyscrapers, a steaming cup of coffee on the table in front of him. His little ritual before Leah woke, or the little ones did. A moment of peace before he would go to work, argue with morons and half-wits, and have a laugh with other morons and half-wits, the ones he liked. An ordinary morning for an ordinary guy. It made it all almost feel normal, almost made him forget about the shambling things in the street, behind the metal gates, on the other side of their front door. Zombies, he muttered to himself, still feeling like a fool, still hoping he would wake up and realize that he had been duped. They all had. That all this was some elaborate theater play straight out of Broadway, and the whole damned city was the stage. More than the newscasts, the Facebook posts and X videos, or even the blood and gore under his window. It was the paltry state of their fridge that told him it was no act at all. As fucked up as their government, local and federal was, they wouldn't let a whole city starve to death for some elaborate bullshit. Would they? He snorted, taking another sip of his coffee. It bit his tongue, hot, bitter, and somehow angry. Coffee with no cream or sugar was no coffee at all. He snorted again. 4 days into the apocalypse, with no food or diapers or toilet paper left, and he sat there bitching about having to take his coffee black. Shit. He grabbed a pen, writing wet wipes and barrier cream on his shopping list. More of a wishful thinking list than anything else. But he knew in his gut the day was approaching when he would have to go out, into mayhem and blood. For the supplies they needed, something slammed into their door. Tom jumped out of his chair, the hammer held high. There was a scuffle at their front door, followed by growls and whimpers, then silence. Or what passed for silence now? Moans so omnipresent he had totally tuned them out. He had to. Otherwise, he would have gone mad by now. Fiona started crying, the sound muffled by the closed door and the towels underneath it, and Tim's old baby mattress nailed to it. But it still came through, and it still called those undead bastards to them. The moans turned to growls, hard steps echoing through the empty building. He braced for another slam, but still jumped when it came. The thing threw itself against the steel door, nails scraping against the decorative wooden panels. There was another, then another. At least 3 at their front door. Jesus, he breathed, immeasurably glad he had spent extra on that armored steel door. His concern was burglars and killers, but it worked against the zombies all the same, at least for now. He lowered the hammer, feeling foolish. What would a hammer do against those things? He saw them run. He saw them pile on men, women, and children, tear them apart like pulled pork. And he planned on stopping them with a hammer? A baseball bat, maybe. Could he get some barbed wire? Like in that show Leah used to watch? Fiona finally stopped crying, and he heard his wife's soft hum as she sang their little angel back to sleep. "Dad!" Tim called from his bedroom. Shit, Tom thought, opening his bedroom door. Yes, buddy? The boy hid under his covers, as if the little dinosaurs on it could protect him. Are they gone? Yes, they are. Tom sat on his bed. Did that scare you? He nodded under the covers. Me too, buddy. Is there space for me under there? The boy lifted the blue covers up, revealing the tufts of his red hair and bloodshot eyes. He had been crying silently. Oh, my boy. Tom pushed his head under the covers, their noses touching. You don't have to hide here. But his lips shivered, and there is no need to cry silently. You can talk to me. But you always shush Fiona when she cries. To calm her, Tom grabbed his son in a big hug. You are a long way from being a big boy. If you are scared, you come to Dad. Okay. Tom squeezed him harder, and the boy shook in his hands. Silent sobs, barely audible. Oh, my boy, Tom thought, rocking Tim on his knee. Can I cry with you? The boy shook his head. No, Tom snorted. Why not? You are a big boy, he said between the sobs. That I am, he smiled, holding his son tight. Do you want to help me make breakfast? The boy nodded. Then hop, Tom grunted, lifting him up. Tim threw his arms around his neck, holding so tightly it became a chokehold. But Tom didn't complain, nor did he push the boy away. Instead, he carried him to the kitchen, where Leah sat watching them, a sad smile on her lips. Mom is awake, Tom whispered. Tim all but pushed himself away, running to his mom. She hugged and kissed him, and he nestled into her arms. Breakfast? Leah asked, her red locks jetting in all directions. Yes, Tom said. What would you like? Hard bread and some beef jerky? Cereal, Tim said. We have no milk, Tom said, holding the bread heel in his hand. The knock your teeth out, stone-like last piece of bread they had. Paired with 1 can of sardines and a bit of cheese was all the remaining food in their home. Plus, the milkless cereal. Today is the day, he thought, pouring Cap'n Crunch into a bowl. But today, you and the Cap will sail the dry seas. What? The boy asked. You can have them like this. Tom placed the bowl on the table. The boy almost jumped for joy, his hands raised high as if he had won at life. And in a small way, he did. Tom? Leah asked. Honey, what's wrong? Is there anything else we need to put on the list? She blinked at him, not comprehending. The shopping list, he said. Her eyes grew wide, face went pale. The red locks danced as she shook her head. His little fire goddess. You can't. I have to. No, she muttered, but didn't get up. She couldn't. Tim sat in her lap, devouring the cereal like a madman. They were all starving. Look over the list. Add anything we might need, he said, entering their bedroom. Little Fiona slept in her white crib, her little baby ass high in the air. Tom watched his angel for a moment longer. Then he turned and grabbed his jogging pants and shirt. Running and hiding were his only options. Should have done it last night, Tom thought, turning back to his baby girl. Could he wait yet another day? No, he couldn't. As the days passed, he grew weaker. They all did. Tom bent down, placing a soft kiss on that raised, cute ass, and left the room, 2 backpacks in his arms. Leah waited for him, arms crossed and lips pressed into a thin line. Tim was nowhere to be seen. I let him eat it in his room and play the Switch. Are there no rules anymore? Tom smiled. You are not going anywhere, she said. I have to. She shook her head. There is no choice. But they will eat you, she whispered. The memory of a woman eating her own child floated in his mind's eye. The terror he saw in Leah's face as she watched it with him, as she clung to him. They might. But we will starve. Besides, the mini-mart is just around the corner. 2 minutes tops, he said, trying to sound strong and confident. She remained silent, glaring at him. Will you not even say bye before I leave? She shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. No, you won't? You are not leaving, he smiled, taking her face into his hands. I love you, and I'm going. But I didn't add anything to the list. Then I will have to go twice, he said, kissing her hard. She kissed him back, desperate. Just wait a second, she muttered, wiping the tears out of her eyes. We need powdered milk and baby formula and... She went on, but he didn't listen. Not really. His eyes and ears were focused on their front door. It went quiet some time ago. Even the moans had stopped. That happened from time to time. Why? Where did they go? Up or down? Tom? He turned around to see her smiling through the tears. I told you we shouldn't have visited your parents. He chuckled, watching her do the same. For the first time in 4 days, they laughed together. Hopefully, it wouldn't be their last. Tom squinted through the peephole, seeing nothing but dirty tiles. One hand on the knob, the other gripping the hatchet. He wanted to stay, so desperately to curl into his bed and hug Leah until the nightmare passed, until this new age hocus-pocus theater piece passed. But that wouldn't happen. He sighed, throwing one last look back into their apartment. No one stood there. No one saw him out. And yet, he heard Leah's silent sobs coming from the bathroom, desperate and helpless. I know, honey, he thought, turning the doorknob. See you soon. The latch clicked softly behind him, alone again. But it was no morning routine this time. It was the last chance for him to turn back. To rush back into safety, he held a hand on the door and listened. No growls, no running, just distant moans, shuffling steps, and the almost imperceptible creaks of his leather jacket. Above or below? He couldn't tell. The whole building echoed weirdly. The sound bounced off the lifeless walls endlessly. Or was that only his imagination? Move, he told himself, peeling away from the door. Away from the safety it provided, and into the rotting building, prowling towards the staircase, the most dangerous part of his plan. Tom looked up, nothing. He turned his head, watching the ground floor. He saw no movement. Just one floor down, he told himself, taking the first step. His feet barely touched the tiled floor, his sweaty hand sliding along the railing for support. More mental and emotional than physical. But that didn't matter. Not now. He just had to move, step after step, and he would be out of the building and into the vast city. Open streets with no protection. The thought terrified him, froze the blood in his veins. But he pushed on, because, beneath the fear, the logical part of his mind screamed at him too. For it couldn't be worse than the cramped staircase, where he could only run in 2 directions, and the things from above could simply fall on him. Tom forced his eyes to stay ahead, to scan the ground floor opening before him. He looked left and right. There were no zombies there, just rows of closed, bloody doors. No, not all were closed. 2 stood ajar, bloody hand and face prints all around them. Under them, too. These were 2 apartments that had been broken into by zombies. He froze, listening. Were they empty? What if there were zombies inside? Freshly turned, and only now drawn by the noise. Breathe. Tom clenched his teeth, the grip on the hatchet tightening. Breathe. He took a shaky breath. The metallic scent of blood mingled with the sweet stench of rotting flesh. It made him sick. A growl tore through the silent building, followed by another, both coming from above. His head snapped up, eyes meeting a bloodshot pair. Long brunette hair framing a bloody, snarling face, half her cheek missing. His eyes went wide as the thing hurtled itself down over the railing. Head first, blood dripping from the open jaws, hands reaching for him. His legs moved on their own, and Tom skittered on the tiled floor, turning left for the main exit. The thing crashed down with a sickening crunch. Blood and gore sprayed everywhere. Tom slammed into the door, his hands pushing it open, heedless of what lay beyond, and without taking the time to see if it would survive or perish. He didn't care. He had to get out. The others were coming. He could hear their growls and the sound of their steps. The door shut behind him, and he rushed into the decorative bush. Hatchet held high, ready to swing down, waiting to see what came at him. Nothing did. Nothing growled or snarled, but the sun did shine, and the wind and leaves tickled his sweaty neck. The flies buzzed, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The world, just for a moment, seemed normal again. Like the curtain had finally fallen, and the actors waited for their cue to greet the audience. Zombies slammed against the closed door, and Tom jumped out of his skin, spinning and watching them scratch and drool on the bulletproof glass. At least 5 of them. Jesus, Tom thought, lowering the hatchet. He wanted to turn away and move on, but he couldn't take his eyes off the zombies inside his building. He could open the door, they would rush out of the building. And what then? He looked over his shoulder at the stone fence. Could he jump it? Probably. But what awaited him on the other side? And besides, how would he get back in? Their building was gated, meant to keep the riffraff out. But now, it served as a barrier between their building and the rest of the undead. If they never got in, he thought, looking at the metal gate, at the promise of safety. But they did. And now, what was meant to protect them became a death trap. But if he could get them out and close the door behind them, maybe, he thought, watching the overturned cars behind the gate. Problem for later, he muttered, throwing one last look at the bloody faces behind the glass. Food first, he said, walking toward the metal gate. One step closer to feeding his family or dying trying. The mini-mart was less than 5 minutes on foot, literally around the corner. And if it were a normal day, a normal life, he would walk down the street, headphones in, listening to sports or financial news, or maybe even politics, gathering topics for his day at the office. There had always been a must-watch game on, always a trade to be discussed, the stock market predictions to be had, or a corrupt politician to sneer at. Everyone had an opinion on the damned politicians, speaking authoritatively as if they knew anything more than the next guy. And Tom was no different. The countless pointless arguments about this or that policy, about this or that scandal, or he had been 4 days ago. Now he crouched behind a parked van, listening to moans instead of CNN. They were still ever present, but down here, in the thick of things, they were too loud to ignore. Omnidirectional, far and near. Tom peeked behind the van, watching the group of 6 huddled together, shuffling into each other, rocking and grunting, an occasional growl cutting through the monotone moans. If they saw him, he was dead. If they heard him, he was dead. So be stealthy and quiet, he thought, turning away, watching the next car in the row. Easier said than done. He chided himself for his own thoughts, studying the gap he would have to cross, at least 3 seconds in the open. Not steps, but seconds. For if they saw him, that's how much time he had. To run and hide, to live or die. Tom's muscles tensed, and he checked one last time. The horde moved further away. He moved. 1, 2, 3. Tom flew over the gap, or he did the silent equivalent tiptoeing, barely touching the street. He hid behind the car, his heart beating fiercely, drowning out the moans and grunts, even the sound of his own breathing. Calm, he told himself, pressing a hand to his chest, willing his heart to still. It didn't listen. Calm, he repeated, leaning around the car to see the horde shambling around. None the wiser. Lucky, he thought, and checked for the next hiding spot. Another car, another gap, another 3 seconds that decided everything. If he lived or died, more importantly, if his family did. 1 Tom crouched. 2, 3. He ran to the next car, then the next. Seeing little pockets of zombies all around him. Their moans and shambles filled his ears as his heart calmed, until it nearly stopped. Tom stopped behind a blue Jeep, catching his breath and looking around. Well, at a big gap to the truck and the intersection, and the mass of zombies to the left, he leaned to the side, watching at least 12 pairs of dirty and torn shoes shamble about, moaning and groaning, bumping into each other and the car they surrounded. He pulled back into cover, eyes darting to the heavens. But he was never a believer, and he sure for shit wouldn't start now. Maybe I should, he thought, studying the large gap between the car he hid behind and the big water truck in front of him. At least 6 seconds in the open. Shit, he thought, turning to look at the undead. Unsurprisingly, the situation stayed the same. Fuck! He forced himself to breathe and think, scanning the environment, searching for cover, a safe way to cross the large gap, but he saw nothing. He turned his eyes back to the truck, to the metal ladder mounted on its rear. That could serve in a pinch. He could climb up and wait it out. But can the things climb? He didn't know, but it didn't matter. Not anymore. He was so close. He needed to reach the intersection. And he was there, at the mini-mart. Tom threw one last look around the car and braced himself. Eyes closed, and heart surprisingly steady. Fearless or burned out? He asked himself and ran. 1. Tom glanced at the zombies. 2, 3. One moved, starting to turn. 4, 5. It bumped into another, and they growled at each other. 6. Tom almost hit the truck, sliding to a stop. His heart was trying to break out of its cage, but he was alive, and they hadn't seen him or heard him. Tom lifted his hands into the air, just like Tim did. He wanted to hoop and jump. Adrenaline needed an outlet, but he couldn't. Wait, he thought, getting down on his belly and actually checking if the horde had moved. They hadn't. Thank Jesus, he sighed, letting himself rest on the floor, still on his stomach, like a snake. But unlike a snake, his whole body was drenched in sweat, and it felt like it would burn up despite the cool breeze. Tom pushed himself up. He could shower when he got home. Now he needed to get the food and get gone. He crouched by the corner, watching the street. No zombies by the entrance, and no zombies around the mini-mart. Lucky, he thought again, and rushed in. The sweet smell of rotting flesh filled the stale air, mixing with the metallic scent of blood and mundane smells of a store, to create a sickening concoction. A low growl cut through the silence. Tom dropped down, eyes and ears straining to see and hear in the dim store. Another low growl echoed, followed by a crunching sound. At the other end of the mini-mart, where the till was, crouched 2 zombies, growling in satisfaction as blood slowly filled the grout joints. Thick and slow, creating a mosaic of green, white, and red. Tom shivered, pulling back. He wanted to run. His whole body screamed for him to run, but he needed to stay, to grab at least something, even if it was only a can or 2 of beans, and preferably some milk for the kids. Tom sidestepped into the food aisle, the shopping list in hand. The scribbled handwriting was all but laughing at him, creating a shopping list now seeming insane. Grab what you can, he told himself, eyes scanning the sweats, breads, and cans around him. They needed all of it. He strained his ears, listening to the sounds of the feast. They didn't stop. If anything, the sound of munching flesh and breaking bones intensified. Tom nodded, grabbing 2 loaves of partially baked bread. The plastic wrapper crinkled in his hands, and the things quieted. Tom froze, holding his breath, waiting. Slurping and crunching broke the silence, and he continued, taking another loaf and 2 bags of candies. Tim would lose his mind. Tom smiled, moving on slowly and steadily all the way to the end of the shelf. Grabbing 2 bags of rice and beans and 5 pounds of flour, Tom peeked behind the produce, watching the things eat their fill, and the absurdity of the situation hit him. He was at the store, grabbing food, and they were too. Some things never change. He smiled despite himself and slid into the next row. Rows of canned food stretched before him. He grabbed 3 cans of Hormel chili with beans, 3 cans of Dinty Moore beef stew, 2 cans of Campbell's chunky beef with vegetable soup, and 1 can of SpaghettiOs. Filling his bag almost to bursting, Tom switched them up, putting the full one on his back and opening the empty one. The cans in his bag clanked together, and he stopped. The munching stopped again, but the growling didn't. Did they hear him? Shit, Tom thought, watching the treasure trove of food sprawl before him. But could he risk it? The things started moving. Tom swallowed, backing away. Away from the door and the exit. Fuck, he thought, checked behind the shelf, listening to them shamble closer. The path to the baby aisle was clear. Tom checked around the corner and behind his back, seeing nothing. Wherever they were, he couldn't see them. Was that a good thing? Tom gritted his teeth and pushed through. He saw them then, shuffling towards the cans, slow and unsteady. Were they checking the noise? He reached the baby aisle and grabbed a small pack of baby formula, a pack of diapers, and the cream Leah had written down. Anything more than that would have to wait. He had to get out. Tom rushed to the exit, staying low and silent, checking his flanks and rear periodically, trying and failing to keep an eye on the 2 zombies and the floor in front of him. He stepped on something, a fucking rubber chicken. The screeching, honking, and wheezing squawk tore through the quiet like a gunshot. The zombies roared in response, hurtling at the sound. But Tom didn't wait to meet them. He sprinted for the door, not caring for the sound he made. He ran as fast as he could, straight into a running zombie. The thing rushed through the open door, hands extended and jaws open, a visceral growl filling Tom's ears as he ran headfirst into it. He lifted the bag and swung the hatchet. Bloody fingers closed on his leather jacket, and the hatchet connected. The skull gave in, and the thing crumpled under him. Tom tripped, almost falling and losing the hatchet as his legs hit the dead thing's torso. He stayed on his feet somehow and broke out. Into the New York, sun and half a dozen zombies rushing at him. Tom bolted home, the bag on his shoulders as heavy as sin. Snarling, growling, and springing zombies rushing at him. Even worse, the horde he saw earlier rounded the corner, barring his path, rushing at him. He had only one chance, the water truck, and he took it. Tom felt his legs strain and protest. He felt his lungs do the same, but it didn't matter. Nothing mattered. He ran like the wind around the horde and the truck, dodging lunges and smashing hands and heads all the way to the metal ladder. He let the bag drop, climbing up like a madman, hands reaching for his ankles, almost snatching his shoes away. Almost. Tom let himself fall on the warm metal, panting and coughing. He survived. How in the living fuck did he survive that? But he did. And he got the essentials. He actually did it. Tom laughed. Desperation, adrenaline, fear, and joy bursting out of him. Tears filled his eyes. Whether they were from fear or joy, he didn't know. It didn't really matter. He just survived a fucking threat of death, and his kids would be fed. Fuck yeah! He screamed over the growling and snarling zombies. Fuck yeah, he repeated, letting his eyes fall closed. I'm coming home, he thought. Don't you worry. Over an hour passed. and the zombies growled and snarled around him, smashing and scraping against the water truck, not giving up, even though they couldn't see him or hear him. Could they smell me? Tom asked himself, his eyes staring at the slowly moving clouds, one of which looked like a cat. Probably, he concluded, not even needing to sniff himself. The mad dash toward the truck left him breathless and sweaty and smelling like a man cake to the zombies around him. And the damned sun didn't help, beating down on him like he offended its mother. But, well, at least he was alive. At least he got some food and supplies. The rest will follow another day. If I make it home, he thought, peering over the edge. The things went nuts again, growling and charging at the truck, smashing into it, nails scraping the paint with a high-pitched sound he couldn't ignore. Tom pulled his head back, away from the bloodshot eyes. He shivered. The way they looked at him was unnerving, something akin to hatred and starvation. The starvation part he could relate to, but the hatred part, not really. But maybe he was just personifying them, adding living qualities to non-living things, and it didn't help that the things had once been human. He turned back to cloud gazing, looking for that cat again. A gunshot tore through the growls. Tom sat up, eyes scanning the street. Were the soldiers back? Or did some poor guy just kill himself? 3 more sounded, followed by a dozen more. That had to be the army. But where were they? Zombies around him growled, snarled, and sprinted off toward the sound. 1 second they were all around him. The other, they peeled off and rushed away, sprinting around parked and overturned cars, like a wave breaking on a rocky shore, barely even slowing down. The things pushed through, slamming into cars and each other, rushing toward the sound, and with each passing second, more joined them. From all sides, even some from behind Tom's hiding truck, the ones his commotion didn't reach, but the shots did. Tom watched the mass grow, filling the avenue up, spilling over onto the sidewalk, all while even more gunshots sounded, followed by a roar of something that could have been a tank. Tom didn't know, nor had he ever cared. Guns and armies were faraway things, or had been. Now they attacked NYC with some regularity, and lost every time. There were just too many zombies to contend with, too many of them bleeding into one singular mass, blanketing everything. On the eve of the second day, he saw the army kill at least 60, but another 60 replaced them, then another 60 joined, and they overwhelmed the troop of maybe 200 men. Some broke and ran, others stayed and fought. But in the end, they all rose up, replenishing the undead horde once again, leaving weapons and cars for some brave civilians to gather. And they did, or some did. Others tried and were run down or gunned down. Move, idiot. He peeked over the truck. All the zombies were gone. Well, all but one. The one that had its spine broken. It dragged itself along after the sound, fingers bleeding from the effort. Tom felt pity for the thing, snarling and growling, but unable to hunt its prey. "What's wrong with me?" he muttered, grabbing his bag and hatchet. "Should I kill it?" Tom watched the thing struggle. "No," he told himself, and rushed down, grabbed his second bag, now bloody and torn, but the contents were undamaged, and ran home. This time he didn't hide. He didn't have to. Any and all zombies were drawn away by the gunfire. Any and all zombies were gone. Tom ran home, a smile on his face. He only needed to get rid of the zombies in his building, and then it would all be fine. He ran past the cars he used as cover, his mind going over the best way to do it. Best time for it, too. Probably right now, when the streets were empty. Something moved in the corner of his eye. Tom turned. It snarled, hands reaching for him, mouth open, flying at his face. Tom sidestepped, and the thing flew past him. But the fucker was quick. Half a step later, it turned and lunged again. Tom threw the bag at it, and the zombie stumbled. The hatchet flashed, brains and blood sprayed over the concrete sidewalk. Hot droplets hit his hands and face. Tom staggered back, resisting the urge to shout or spit or wipe his face with bloody hands. He didn't know what would happen if it got in his mouth or eyes, and wasn't keen on finding out. He unzipped his leather jacket and used his clean shirt to wipe the blood away, slowly and carefully, making sure not to smear it or to eat it. More gunshots echoed in the distance as he stared down at the zombie, his shirt still in his hands. Why didn't it follow the sound? Or was it just slow? Problem for later, he muttered, grabbing the bag and continuing. No longer running, but hiding and watching. He learned one thing in the last 4 days. If there was one zombie, there were more. And yet there were none. He reached the metal gates without an incident. He unlocked them, watching the street behind him and the courtyard before him. That had truly been a lone zombie. Strange. Tom peered through the bulletproof glass and saw an empty hallway. He turned the doorknob slowly, pushing the door open. Hatchet held at the ready, but nothing came at him. Nothing but snarls and growls from upstairs. Okay, he thought, jamming the door. A way out if he needed it, and possibly if he was lucky, some of the zombies in the building would wander out. And what then? Tom asked himself, then almost slapped himself. Now was not the time. He moved slowly, silently, ears straining to hear. But nothing changed. That was a good sign. He stepped over the half-eaten zombie body on the stairs, long brown hair now torn off and bloody. Zombies apparently ate their own. He took the stairs, one by one, eyes locked on the floors above him, and the growls grew louder and louder, accompanied by nails scraping against wood. Was that on our floor? He thought, reaching the middle of the stairs, craning his neck to see. But he couldn't see them, nor could he see his door. Shit, he thought, moving again, hatchet at the ready, as if that could help him against multiple zombies in such a cramped space. Just move, he told himself, taking another step, then another. Tom froze. 6 zombies banging and scraping at his door. He pulled back, hiding on the staircase, staring at the unseen zombies, at the unseen door and his family behind it. What now? He could make them chase him, lead them out. But what then? Leah and the kids still needed the food. He couldn't fight, not really. The fact that he survived so long was a miracle in itself. There was only one thing left to do. Tom stuck the hatchet into his belt, praying. I guess I'm a hypocrite, he thought, taking the bag off his shoulder. But if you are up there? Tom took a deep breath. Take care of them. Tom stepped out of the cover and threw the bags at the zombies. Both hit. 3 zombies staggered. The other 3 snarled and turned. But Tom was already running, screaming. Food! He jumped over the corpse, hit the wall, and pushed off. 3 zombies stumbled over the dead one, slamming into the wall, but barely slowing down. He kicked the door as he ran past. It clicked. Perfect, he thought. Bloody jaws and nails reaching for him, grabbing his still-open jacket, pulling on it. But it didn't matter. All 6 were now out, and the big white door slammed shut. Tom staggered and stumbled, his hand turning the metal knob. All 7 of them spilled into the street. The metal gates clicked shut behind them. Nails tore into his arms and legs, the red curtain closing. Leah's smile flashed in his mind's eye. Tim's raised hands in triumph. Fiona's laughing face. Their laughter filled his ears, drawing out the snarls. Tom smiled as teeth tore into him. Leah stirred the chili with one hand, the other rocking Fiona back to sleep, now that everything had finally gone quiet. Too quiet. No moans, no steps, They disappeared an hour ago. That simple word echoed in her mind. Food! Tom had screamed, desperate, afraid, so far away. And then nothing. Just 2 torn bags at the door, filled with food and necessities. Where are you? Leah thought, eyes drifting to those damned bags. Mom? Tim called from the couch, candy wrappers scattered around him, the switch in his hands, feet swinging, a content smile on his face. Yes, honey. Can I have one more? Sure, she smiled, or tried to. But the tears threatened to break through. Tim beamed, grabbing another candy and returning to his game. So happy, so carefree. Leah turned to the stove, tears slipping down her cheek, into the chili. Their first real meal in days. The smell filled the apartment. The whole thing seemed almost normal, like Tom would walk through that door any second, a smile on his face and flowers behind his back. Like he'd pull Tim's ear, make Fiona fly like an airplane, and kiss her like he always did, just to show he missed her. Come back to us, she whispered, tears streaming freely now. Please. You've just listened to 6 Seconds in the Open, a short story from The Collapse. I post new stories twice a week, with The Collapse and the Monster Universe running side by side. If you enjoyed this, hit like, subscribe, and check out the Monster Universe for classic tales of demons, vampires, werewolves, and more. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.